You've seen the holes in the cabbage leaves, the chewed bean plants, the sticky film under the tomatoes where the aphids have set up shop, and you've stood in the garden center aisle looking at $15 bottles of spray, wondering if there's a cheaper way. There is one, and it's sitting in your laundry aisle right now in a box that's been on American shelves since 1891. But before we get into it, let's be clear about what this ingredient can and can't do, because most of what gets said about it online overstates the case. Borax, sodium borate, is a naturally occurring mineral salt. The brand most people know, 20 Mule Team Borax, takes its name from the 18 mule, 2-horse teams that hauled the mineral 165 miles out of Death Valley to the nearest rail spur between 1883 and 1889. The company started branding the product 20 Mule Team in 1891, and it's been marketed continuously since, first as a laundry booster and cleaner, later with pest control uses on the label as well. It's a real product with a real, well-documented history. None of that part is folklore. Borax and its close relative boric acid have also genuinely been used as low-cost insecticides for well over a century. That much is documented in agricultural extension literature, EPA pesticide guidance, and even old patent filings for boric acid-based ant and roach baits. So the core idea, that a cheap mineral salt from your laundry shelf can kill certain household pests, isn't a secret someone buried. It's on the label of ant bait products you can buy today. Borax and boric acid are simply the ingredient inside many of them, sold in DIY form. Here's the mechanism. And it's worth understanding because getting it wrong is the single biggest reason homemade borax bait fails. Ants can't digest solid food. They feed each other by regurgitating liquid, mouth to mouth, a process called trophallaxis. A worker ant that finds a sugar and borax bait doesn't just eat it and die on the spot. She carries it back to the nest and shares it with the other workers, the larvae and the queen. Borax acts as a slow stomach poison, so if the dose is right, the worker survives long enough to make it home and pass the bait along before she dies. That's what actually collapses a colony. Not the ants you can see, but the ones you can't. This means concentration is everything. Pest control professionals and extension guides consistently point to a narrow window, roughly a 122% borax, or boric acid, solution by weight in sugar water. A common home recipe is about 2 level teaspoons of borax dissolved into 350 milliliters, roughly 12 Oz, of water with a half cup of sugar. Too little borax, and the ants simply eat free food and multiply. Too much, and the forager dies before she gets back to the nest. You kill a few dozen ants and the colony barely notices. Roach baits work on a similar stomach poison principle, but don't rely on trophallaxis the same way. A simple dry dust of roughly equal parts borax and flour or powdered sugar, placed as a thin line behind appliances and along cabinet backs, never where food or hands make contact, is the traditional approach, and it shows up in boric acid bait patents going back decades. Ants really do farm aphids, protecting them from predators like ladybugs in exchange for the honeydew aphids secrete. This is a genuine, well-documented relationship in entomology, not a folk claim. So it's true that knocking back an ant colony near an aphid-infested plant can indirectly help the aphid problem, because the aphids lose their bodyguards and natural predators move back in. That said, this is a secondary effect. A proper ant bait program takes days to weeks to show results, and it won't touch an aphid population that got established through other routes, like a new infested plant you brought in. It's genuinely lower in mammalian toxicity than many synthetic insecticides. The EPA and National Pesticide Information Center both note this. But lower toxicity is not harmless. It can cause stomach upset in pets and children if ingested in quantity. And it should be kept in closed bait stations, out of food prep areas, and away from anywhere kids or pets can reach it. Ants, cockroaches, and some soft-bodied pests respond to boron-based baits. Claims about spraying it on tree trunks for coddling moths, using it as a general perimeter dust against every crawling insect, or soil-drenching fruit trees and grapevines to control root pests are not supported by current university extension guidance. Boron is also a plant micronutrient in trace amounts, but becomes toxic to plants at higher concentrations and can build up in soil over repeated applications. So casual, repeated use around root zones is a real risk to the plants themselves, not a free and safe trick. Because it works through the colony, not by contact kill, it typically takes days to a couple of weeks to show a real drop in ant activity. And reapplication as bait dries out or gets fouled is normal, according to pest control professionals, mainly because people get the bait medium or concentration wrong. If you've tried a DIY mix and it isn't working, that's usually the reason, not that the method is fake. Borax is a real, cheap, historically well-established tool against ants and roaches specifically, when mixed at the right concentration and placed correctly. It is not a universal garden pesticide. It is not risk-free. And most of the wide-ranging claims about it, curing everything from squash bugs to fruit tree borers to garden slugs, aren't backed by extension research. They're folk extensions of a real core idea. Use it for what it's actually good at. Follow label and safety guidance the same way you would for any pesticide, and you'll get a genuinely useful, low-cost tool without the overreach.